We just heard from 6th District Congressman Tom Emmer on the infrastructure and Build Back Better bills. Now a chance to get the perspective of Democratic Congressman Dean Phillips. I spoke with him earlier this morning. Joining us right now is Congressman Dean Phillips. Thank you so much for coming on.
Great to be with you, Esme.
All right. Earlier this week, you celebrated the infrastructure bill with Congresswoman Angie Craig, talking about how much it's bringing to Minnesota: $4.5 billion for highways, $300 million for bridge repairs, $100 million for broadband. Is this going to be distributed throughout the state? I just spoke with Congressman Tom Emmer, who said really most of this, if not all, is going to Minneapolis.
That's just not true. Just another bold-faced lie. One of the main objectives of the entire act, the infrastructure bill, is to ensure that every part of our country gets taken care of. The Port of Duluth, highways, water systems throughout Minnesota, Esme, are in dire straits. The dollars in the infrastructure bill are going to be distributed broadly. We need geographic equity in our country. I recognize that. Rural areas deserve and need infrastructure improvements. That's why broadband is part of this as well. I'm tired of the lies. That's one of them. The Minnesota State Legislature will play a role in allocating some of those resources, but rest assured, everybody in Minnesota will benefit, particularly the communities that need it the most.
You've got a moderate senator who is holding up this bill from West Virginia, but he's saying he's holding it up in part because he's concerned that the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better bill are contributing to this runaway inflation that all of us are seeing.
First of all, I have to acknowledge inflation is a problem right now. Not a huge surprise. In the middle of a pandemic, inflation is a problem around the world. Supply chains will catch up. In fact, the infrastructure bill helps that. Improves ports, substantial investment, billions of dollars to improve our supply chains via ports, allows for 18 to 21-year-old truck drivers to enter the workforce to help with the trucker shortage that the country is facing right now. Larry Summers and Moody's just announced that the Build Back Better Act, the second initiative, will not impact inflation. If anything, it's going to reduce costs for families. Childcare, cost of childcare will drop by 50% within the first year. The negotiation of Medicare drugs, including a $35 cap on insulin, that's going to benefit people. Elderly folks who have hearing needs are going to see their costs drop. Pre-K education is going to be free for families. It's going to actually help reduce the costs for American families. That's the whole point. And Esme, I have to say that the misinformation being distributed by certain of my colleagues in the United States Congress is both shameful, it's dangerous, and terribly misleading.
You just did a good job of summarizing some of what's in the Build Back Better bill. Let me ask you, is this going to come up for a vote this week in Congress? And do you think this can pass? A lot of people think it's in trouble.
Well, I think it's going to be close. There's in no small part, Esme, because of the misinformation being propagated by certain people in Congress and around the country. Those who, and in fact, I encourage people watching right now, don't believe me, don't believe Fox News or MSNBC, but take a look at the bill, look at the components, try to understand where the investments are directed and why we call them investments, because we expect a return from them. These are not just costs. These are investments to improve lives, make us more competitive, reduce prices for families, and ensure more opportunity for everybody. Those are universal Democratic and Republican notions. I hope we get to vote on it soon. I think it's transformative. And I think down the road, Americans will be grateful for both the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better Act.
I know you prided yourself on working across the aisle, but I do want to ask you about the climate in Washington. It was a bipartisan infrastructure bill in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, called it a godsend. Yet in the House, the 13 Republican House members who voted for it are getting death threats. What is going on there, and is there any solution to this?
Yes, ma'am. Many of those 13 Republicans are my dear friends and colleagues, and it just disgusts me that any member of Congress, including many on the Democratic side of the aisle, are being subjected to death threats. Their families. I've had members announce their retirements. One of my dear Republican colleagues, Anthony Gonzalez, has received so many threats that he recognizes it's in the best interest of his family to retire from Congress after one term. It's sad. I think we all, every single one of us around the country, have to take a step back and recognize the consequences of this behavior. And it is not a good way to inspire the best and brightest Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, to become participants. If we continue down this path, it is a dangerous one, but I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic. As you said, I'm the 12th most bipartisan member of Congress. I pride myself in building bridges and finding common ground and joining together for the common cause. That's what we all have to start doing more of.
All right. Well, Congressman Dean Phillips, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Esme. Keep the faith.